Thank you, Scott. Bore da pawb a croeso cynnes I chi gyd. Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this morning's meeting of the Strategic Change, Transformation and Culture Committee. If we turn to the agenda, do we have apologies for absence here?
So Bryn Monahan and Area Manager Mark.
Perfect, thank you very much for that. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I have a declaration of interest. I'm Chair of Cardigan Vale University Health Board, whose facilities are mentioned in the Grenfell paper later on today. Any further declarations? No, we will move to Chairperson's announcements. I think certainly for this committee, this is the first time that Liam Hull has joined us, so I'd like to welcome Liam. I'm the Director of Finance to this committee. It's good to see you, Professor. Welcome. We then go to item number 4, and that's to receive the minutes of this committee's meeting that took place on the 20th of November. That feels like quite some time ago. But if we could turn to look at those minutes, and first of all, in terms of accuracy, is everybody who was here at that meeting agreed that this is an accurate reflection of the discussions that took place at the committee? I don't see any dissenting voices, so we will accept that those minutes have been approved. I don't think there's any matters arising that aren't already covered on the action log, so we will turn to the action log, which begins on page 13 of your packs. First of all, we've got 6.8 1409, the establishment of a DDAT governance board. We've got some updates here along the side that relate to how the board is going to operate and how the board is going to, how the DDAT board is going to operate and how that is going to report back into commissioners or any future governance arrangements. Is anybody going to say anything further on that action? No, I think, Amanda, that you can probably close that. I think the updates are very, very clear. We're very aware of what the next steps are, so I think that one's really closed. We then got 9/20/11, and this was to look for a replacement with regards to high-rise training. So this related to the demolition of Brecknock House at University Hospital Wales, but we'll see from the Grenfell paper later on that on a temporary basis, University Health Board at the University Wales Carmarthen House site will be available for training. I think that too is earmarked for demolition, so this is about the future arrangements, wasn't it? Mike, have you got any update?
Again, need a longer term strategy. The 3 to 5 year plan using the next building, again, is set for demolition, but a longer term training facility is, I think, a significant amount of work is needed to identify where that location is, whether there's scope that we can develop on site in Cardiff Gate, or whether we've got to buy a completely new site which can then be used by other services such as Mid and West and our neighbouring services. So there's a lot of work still needed in regards to that, particularly with significant investment involved.
I answer that, please, Chair.
Yes, of course, Nick.
So we developed a tasking finish group for the end of the Cardiff Gate contract, PFI contract in 2020-31. So that will be picked up as one of the strands of that work as well. So long-term high-rise training asset flows through this.
Are we, the suggestion here that this matter is now closed, because obviously there is a temporary solution being identified and acquired. There is a longer-term strategic piece that Neil just spoke to in terms of looking at the future of training facilities. Are we happy to close? Are we happy that this action is going to be picked up and we can close this off the log?
I think that's a good suggestion. The interim solution's found, isn't it? We know, but the longer term solution is part of that piece of work with the Commission this week. Through that.
And Neil, just looking at you, I presume.
Liam's on it.
Yeah, because you're right, it's going to be a big capital investment, isn't it? Whatever we do. So,
Yeah, so I was involved in the meeting on Tuesday, I think it was, wasn't it? And yeah, I was part of that, that's what that is. So.
Okay, so we can take that off the action log. Thanks for everybody. That sounds like we've got that medium and that longer term line of sight on how we will deal with that issue. And then we've got 11/20/11, Amanda.
Yeah, so I took away an action to review with you any outstanding matters following this meeting today. So I guess we probably need to come back to this at the end of the meeting, but it's understood that whatever we report to next will be under the new structure. So it's just for me to make sure that that picks up before work plans.
Okay,
I think we've already considered, Commissioner Brooks and I, about whether there might be an extraordinary meeting about May time to close down a few things anyway, but that's something we haven't sort of firmed up.
no, and you know, and Chair, it felt that when we look at there's a number of actions that are getting complete towards the end of the financial year and towards our end of our tenure, that a meeting in May may well allow us to formally close down those. So we're just handing over what are longer term stuff really, rather than the kind of actions that have done.
brilliant. So we will have a further meeting to schedule, if necessary, an extraordinary meeting for May. Brilliant. Thank you. Everybody happy with the action log? Thank you. We will go then on to reports for information and assurance. The first one is an update on the cultural review recommendation, and that's Dom's paper.
Thank you, Chair. So this report outlines our most recent updates for the cultural review recommendations from our most recent improvement board. It's important to note that this work has progressed since that board, and you'll receive further updates on it. The paper would like to scrutinise the progress on the updated implementation of the independent cultural review recommendations, agree the additional evidence gathering requirements, and endorse the plan for the next steps and revised activity. The appendices have an up-to-date detailed analysis of where we are on those recommendations. We'll come into commissioners later on as part of your routine scrutiny, so later today, to go through the most recent updates and quality assure the improvement we've made in those areas. And then we have an internal board on the 12th of March, and we'll be bringing commissioners a full update on both recommendations and the transformation programme with commissioners on the 27th of this month. So key progress that we've made around these areas starts with the governance review and the governance review arrangements as we transition to the new governance model as part of your terms of reference, and should effectively be the last piece of work for the independent cultural review recommendations. The main focus of outstanding recommendations sit with promotions and workforce governance. There's a detailed update within that plan. We were looking to sign that piece off before Board of Commissioners at the end of the month. So we progressed that significantly. There's a framework that has been presented to yourselves, also to our senior leadership team, and that is in the process of being prepared to share with our staff. And through our no workforce strategic governance group, we've agreed that we'll start our watch managers process imminently, and then provide you with dates for the rest of those processes as part of the sign-off process. Other key improvements and areas that we've signed off is the recommendations for policies and procedures, and some of these link with our HR systems and our digital and data review work that will take into the next stage of the transformation programme. Those are the highlights from the recommendations. You can find more detail in the appendices. We have updated these and quality assure the updates with commissioners later today, and then bring the final update with deaths and ownership being finished on the 27th. So those are my key areas in the report.
Thank you very much. Iqbal, questions or comments, reflections on Dominic's report?
Really positive. So looking at us and Lisa and saying around the emotions, you know, seeing that looks really, really good. Yeah, my pleased, just make sure we follow it going forward, because that's where we've got ourselves caught out for. So then it does feel really, really positive, and we can sign them off, Dominic. That would be really good. The I think there's still something outstanding around the Excel spreadsheet around our maturity model, which we did with Welsh Government Star. My plea, if we could get that updated for, prior to, you know, us leaving, that would be really helpful for a conversation with Welsh Government around the direction of travel. And Adam, that maturity model is subjective and data driven. So it needs to be supported by ELT members around how we progressed from where the position we first set when we were starting 2 years ago.
Yeah, we've got some workshops with ELT, SLT around strategy and target operating model and those kind of areas in this month, so we can probably bring that in as part of that and see where we are.
And certainly, Chair, I think that would be really helpful for us for that conversation, because it's one of the things that we gave Welsh Government at the start around this is where we think we are, and we know we've moved on significantly. It'd be a good way to close that.
So do we need to take an action then to ensure that that review happens? So Amanda, if you could note that, that'd be great. So
Just a point, just in relation to the promotions policy, there is some really good work that's happening from People Services team in relation to that review, that new policy. We have committed in the Leadership Connection sessions, the next series, which starts to be about 4 weeks now, Rhian. We're going to do a dedicated piece on that to make sure all our middle leaders fully understand it and can answer the questions back from the workforce, because the credibility, I think, that is gained from that process comes from fully understanding why it's robust, resilient, and transparent. And I think we've committed as ELT to make sure we're going through that in detail with our middle leaders so we can start to get the full benefits from that. So that'll begin, I think it is May, isn't it? The next
Cycle 2, isn't it?
Yeah, cycle 2.
can I ask a question on the promotions process? So it's been taking a huge amount of work to get to this point. Obviously, you've got plans to make sure that that is communicated properly. Do we have a plan to, at the appropriate time, to evaluate the impact? So obviously, staff feeling about the promotions process was really, really negative. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is how will we know that we have made a difference? So is there a plan to, as I said, at the appropriate point, a kind of like review or test whether that's made a difference?
Yeah, I think if Chair, if I may, so that'll be a mixture of quantitative and qualitative. So we obviously know thematic trends from our grievances at the moment. We will be able to give you data in line with some of our people dashboards on what the trends of those are, but also I think through staff surveys and pulse surveys, the richer information we can get from that will be key in terms of promotion processes. I know from previous experience in my previous role in Gloucestershire, that was critical to demonstrating that growing like transparency and trust in the process. So yes, we'll be able to provide data, I think, through good casework, but also the focus on asking the right questions about the process is really important as well.
Brilliant, that's great. So that will be factored in at the appropriate. Sorry, Lisa.
Just also in the process, we've built in seeking feedback from candidates on how they felt the experience was. So we'll actually have live data coming back from each process as well.
Perfect. Thank you. That's good to hear. Are there any other questions? Can I indulge myself then? There are a few points in the appendix about plans, expectations at the station level. And the emphasis is very much on the station. That's in their plan, and it's the station's job to deliver. What can you explain to me how those stations will be held accountable for their delivery? So one that jumps out, we're talking about being more involved in our community and reaching out to some of our religious leaders and building those relationships within communities so that there's that trust and hopefully recruitment into the service is more reflective of the communities that we serve. And that's left to the individual station plans. How will those stations be held accountable for actually doing that work?
Okay.
Mike, what?
I'll let Mike talk, and then I'll come in on the back of Mike's comments.
Okay, for me, what I'm developing now is a set of key performance indicators which are based on all the different plans which are currently out there, prevention, protection, response, linking in with people services as well. So they've got some key performance metrics that they're able to demonstrate on a quarterly basis. So come the end of the year, part of that will include with the unitary authority plans, what the expectations are for each unitary authority, particularly in Cardiff, where you are one of the most diverse communities. I think a recent invite into Cardiff as well to the commissioners will obviously showcase what we're trying to do as well. And I can feed back on that quarterly basis in our performance meetings where we are.
So there's a clear mechanism then for holding stations accountable for the delivery of their plans. Yes, and I'm going to Cardiff Central, I think on the 9th for the day. Lisa.
Our business partner for DICE is also starting a project to create community cohesion teams. So we're working with CS, the stations and people services to bring a project together to evaluate that a bit more as well.
Thank you. And then my last question is on management of risks. So in the paper, Dom, you talk about DDAT, and that's like a theme, isn't it, for the organisation at the moment? In all of our papers, when we look at risk, whether the risk that is always identified is DDAT. And I'm just wondering, in your mitigations in the paper, it's not very clear about how we're going to mitigate the risk of a lack of a digital infrastructure to support programmes going forward. And I'm just wondering how, as an organisation, we're going to manage these DDAT risks across the piece whilst we develop the new strategy.
So the strategy, Chair, we'll be bringing to Board of Commissioners in March, which will be fully costed. The reality is there is a lot of upgrading we need to do to our digital systems. What I think's been missing is a roadmap of how and in what order we're going to do that, so we can sensibly work on a plan that will get us to where we need to be. So what we are working on at the moment is a strategy, but also probably goes a little bit more detailed than that in terms of what order, what's the priority, how much will it cost, and how the PMO will lead to us actually making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable for delivering that. There are some systems, HR system being one of them, that are mission critical, I would suggest, and we need to be getting on with yesterday. That'll be reflected in the strategy that comes through in March. But I think the main thing is, and the kind of the support we'll be asking from commissioners is the funding that we attach around that to make sure that we can deliver on it.
Yeah, thank you. So in March, we have the strategy, and will the strategy be prioritised? Will there be prioritisation in that? There will be.
Yeah.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Any further points, questions? Thanks, Dom. We'll move on then to the next paper. That report for the transformation programme, please.
Yeah, thank you. So this is our routine update on the transformation programme and the key work streams that we have put through that programme. We are asking commissioners to scrutinise progress and updates across the transformation programme and take assurance of the work we've undertaken and endorse a planned transition of outstanding work to the next phase of our organisational improvement plan from April. So we have an updated review of our transformation programme that will come to Board of Commissioners on the 27th of March, which will include a review of all of the 9 programmes of work we've done, what we've achieved, what we feel is outstanding, and what we feel needs to be reviewed or embedded into the service further. And that will then transition into the next phase of the improvement plan that will likely include and focus on key areas such as CRMP development, digital and data, final cultural elements, and that will transition through some of the strategy development work that we now have in place, some of the comms improvements that will become business as usual, some of the DICE improvements that will become business as usual, and our performance framework to assure that. So that piece of work will have a detailed review of exactly where we are and how we're going to transition that. Our key updates cover areas such as the governance review that we've already mentioned, and that sits under our Director of Corporate Services and Monitoring Officers, and she's of course been working very closely with you to transition that. Our target operating model that continues. Myself and the Chief did a workshop recently around target operating model, and we're looking to bring some people in to talk to SLT, ELT, and to do some further analysis of that, how we're going to transition that in the coming weeks. Our CRMP work is progressing significantly under Martin, and he has briefed our independent advisory review yesterday, so I'm sure you'll be aware of that work and we can get further updates on that. Our performance management framework was approved at the last Commissioners Board We had our first internal performance meeting this week, and HMICF were in attendance to that meeting. We've identified some key areas of improvement that we'll need to continue to monitor on that, and how we're going to transition that to get better detailed underneath that. And we talked around embedding our prevention, protection, response strategies and our KPIs and delivery plans that have now been delivered and shared with our staff, and how Matt and Mike are going to monitor those through lower level boards and lower level indicators. Our ethics, values and behaviours work is transitioning now into our reward and recognition, which has been really well received. We've closed nominations for our first large scale reward and recognition event that will happen in and around April time. We've also got our 30th anniversary event that will be taking place next week. We've got over 200 nominations for that, recognising staff across the service. We've done some independent assessment of that, and we now have winners that are not yet announced, but we have shared nominations with all of those that have been nominated. So everyone that was nominated for a reward has been notified, and they've had their citations shared with them, and that has been really well received with staff across the service. So we look forward to attending that ceremony. We've already touched on the progress we've made on our talent management and promotion work, and the need to drive our digital and data forward, including the strategy that we're going to bring to you in future. We've also highlighted within the report some of the key systems that we need to review and change over, and those link with our performance management frameworks and some of our HMICFRS recommendations. And then the appendices has some key dates for some of those key work that we'll need to forward as we progress. So those are the highlights from the transformation programme. A full review of that programme, next steps, areas and timelines will come to Board of Commissioners at the end of the
Thank you once again. Questions, comments or reflections on the transformation plan?
I did have a few, but you don't, you asked
No, no,
some
no,
of them
no,
anyway, so that. So there's a couple done. One's kind of, it sounds like a miserable grouch here. I think the awards and the recognition is brilliant, but I have seen these things run away costing wise with us. And I suppose that looking at Liam and others is that, you know, can we just make sure that we're understanding the totality of the costs as we go forward? Because suddenly you find that most of your budget is spent on saying thank you to people that are leaving the organisation rather than supporting people that are joining it. And that sounds really miserable, but.
No. So we have an update on that, and I'll hand over to Jake to do that. So following our improvement board where this was raised, you asked Jake to go away and have a look at the costings. So he's developed a full report and analysis of those costings, and we'll bring that to you at the next week, the internal board. But I'll hand over to Jake. So
I mean, I've got a paper ready for the service improvement board, so I'll show you everything then. So,
Yeah.
but your concerns, I'd say, on review, I don't think the costings have run away for this year, next financial year. So we've sort of recouped that and made sure that it's stable and it's in the right place.
So I'm not going to sell a kidney or anything.
Absolutely not.
So that's really helpful, really. So thank you for that one. The target operating model, I know we've put it back. We've talked about language review after the CRMP and fire cover review. But Adam, looking at that, bear in mind we don't propose whether we need to kind of define a start date for that or a date for that, really, well, because that's fairly nebulous.
Yeah.
Because
I think there will be an element of concurrency. I don't think, so at the moment, we're looking at a March commence. I mean, we're
We'll wait
working with
for the-
HR then.
Yeah, we're waiting for people service of phase one to be completed
Yeah.
first, and then, because we already have done the procurement exercise, so we have an organisation ready to go.
Yeah.
For the target operating model.
I don't think there's any need to delay that. I think we can go with that as intended in March, and provide updates as we go through.
well, it's, you know, I think it's the organisational decision about where, but it's just the, you know, if we leave it until post the fire cover review, which potentially you might want to do as an organisation, you're probably going to be looking at back end of the summer into the autumn, aren't you?
Yeah.
That might be suitable, but it's just kind of, you know, when are we looking? Because at the moment, I'm not asking around now, Chair. I think it's just one of those to take away and have a think about when you would want to do it, bearing in mind the amount of capacity of the organisation, the work's going through it.
Yeah.
You know, when is the right time to do it? But yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly content that we can stick to our initial plans of March to commence, but it may tie into fire cover review conversations and things, but I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to slow that work down. I think it'll all tie up in across the summer months anyway. So I think we'll stick to the plan of March, and then just keep you updated as the two projects move forward anyway.
Anyone else?
Absolutely. Can I have a
Yes.
do you mind? Digital literacy, I think that the work's going on around improving systems, brilliant, isn't it? But obviously there's a number of comments in here around their organisational digital literacy is not great. So Jake, I don't know if you're thinking about that in the strategy, but I'd be really interested in around how are we going to, because otherwise we could bring in some great tech, couldn't we? But everybody's still kind of trying to use the typewriter.
Absolutely. That is in the strategy. We're going to go through that and advise that with the deck this afternoon to do a bit of a run through and just to reassure you, the strategy will be presented to the heads of service on the next run before it gets aboard anyway. So I'm sort of test firing it. So the training side, I think initially it's our main effort to make sure that everybody's cyber aware first and how they employ artificial intelligence. So I think that's the main effort of the organisation. But moving forward, we do need to work in that area to make sure that we bring everybody with us when we introduce new software. I agree with that, but hopefully we'll highlight that in the forthcoming strategy.
That's really helpful.
You have one more point?
Policies. I read the update around the policies. I think we've all reflected, haven't we, that we've got quite a lot of outdated policies. We've got a lot of stuff. I was less clear about what are we going to do to kind of get on top of that issue. We've tried to use lawyers around some of yours, Alison, haven't we? And it's to a greater or lesser success. It's been an issue since we started actually around what do we do around that policy piece.
I've discussed this with the DEP because I brought it to reality and we discussed that this is a big piece of work. So we need to understand and potentially completely redesign the architecture to simplify, because I think just that big number, 617, how many people are actually reading these things and how it's almost impossible to keep all of those updated. So it's not a light touch review, it's a proper big review. And I think the deputy was concerned that I think it probably does fall under my directorate, but of course I'm dealing with the governance review at the moment. So it's one thing too many at the moment. But I think we talked about maybe trying to stand up when resources allow working group. And it might be the target operating model will identify some capacity for that. But I know we would then discuss it at the workforce planning group. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think Amanda's hit the nail on the head really. To do that, there's quite a lot of work to do that properly, and so we need to resource it effectively, essentially. So I know we've got the People Services Review coming to a conclusion very soon, which hopefully will give us some suggestions. We're not in a position where we've got a full solution yet, so that is work in progress. But it is definitely something that is that we need to put a full plan together for, essentially. So I don't know whether it's worth perhaps reporting back at the next committee with a bit more of a detailed roadmap of how we're going to do that, because it's interlinked with many other of the issues that we've got going on at the moment, isn't it? So a lot of it falls back to policy, so it is something we need to make sure we've got in the right area.
It's capacity driven at the moment. I'm completely honest, it needs a lot of work and it's completely down to capacity. I don't have the capacity to deal with it at the moment. So I can make a commitment to start this work once we've transitioned to our new governance model, because then a lot of my workload will fall away and I can then focus on that's the next big thing. I don't think another paper will tell you much more, to be honest, but I'm just going to be articulating the problem, because I haven't had time to look at how the terms of reference for the working group and what the solution might be yet. I'm sorry.
No, Amanda, you don't have to apologise at all. My frustration is not about anybody in this room, because it's previous. Is that we raised this issue when we first started 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We committed to giving resources to it 2 years ago, and we were told that it wasn't required and it could be done in other ways. You have now all been left with the legacy of that not being gripped properly 2 years ago. For me, effective policy is the heart of the organisation, isn't it? Because I'm 619 number. But we're going to leave a problem for somebody else. And I don't think it's your problem, Ryan. I don't think it's anybody in there. A plan for how we're going to get out of 619. There's got to be a way for it, doesn't it, really? And timeline and funding it. But, there's a conversation we had when we came through the door, and we're now 2 years later on, and we still haven't got a grip on 619. And that's the bit, right?
it seems to me, there is, that's carrying a risk, isn't it? So it's absolutely understandable, Amanda, that the capacity isn't there at the moment, the capacity isn't there, we can't think about the world how we want it to be, we have to do with the world as how it is. So the question is, okay, is there anything, whilst we are waiting for you to be able to shed some of your workload, because governance will transition and you'll have that will be finished. Is there anything in between that we can do to mitigate any of that risk, or is there something in the interim that would add value? The answer may be no, there's not. We just have to wait for that resource to become available.
Yeah, I think, Chair, I mean, by virtue of as things, take the recruitment and promotions policy as an example, as the critical ones come up, we are reviewing them as we go and making sure, that's something that we've now made progress on because it's topical and it's right. But I do think we need to take this away as an action and actually deliver you a robust and confident plan that will actually make a difference to the 617 there. I think, Chair, you're right, we'll need to deal with things as they come up, and that's essentially the prioritisation piece, isn't it? Of, some things just can't wait. But unless we resource this and essentially do what you asked for 2 years ago, which was to get a grip with policy and procedure wholesale across the board and then a review cycle for that. But we'll need to take that away, I think, as a separate action and show you that a credible plan moving forwards.
Alison's the best.
Alison, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Jade, just to add, from a political perspective, we have been working with our lawyers and we have a tracker. So ours is starting to move through the system now. We have a number with the unions being consulted upon at the moment. And we've tracked every policy that comes within the people domain. So we've got some data that we can share with you in terms of applied insurance, what stage each one is at. They are moving through.
Perfect. That's good to hear, Alison. Thank you. And it's as Carl said, it's nobody's individual issue. It is a collective issue, isn't it? It's all of our issue. It's an organisational rather than any one individual. So I think an outline of how we can address that would be helpful. But it's good to hear that it's not as if nothing is happening, but there's still a big mountain to climb. Perfect, thank you. Any further questions or comments on the transformation programme? If not, we'll move on. We'll go to item number. So just to say, sorry, I'm rushing through it, aren't I? Are we agreeing the next steps that are outlined on page 38? I think we are. Perfect. Number 8 then, thematic reviews, operational training, update, and that's union.
Yes. So if I can give you a quick update on the recommendations that we stand in the current status. So recommendation 1 essentially was aligning our training needs analysis with local hazard risks and threats. The status of this recommendation is now complete. So we've done a full redevelopment of our training needs analysis across every station, implemented it in January. This now ensures that training delivery now directly reflects local risk profiles. Recommendation 2, the unconstrained analysis. The status of this is complete also. So we recently revisited the training needs analysis, and the majority are now aligned with time available, with the exception of stations with specialist skill sets. So in a discussion with Mike, the head of ops, it's highly likely that we will need to extend our drill period at a number of stations. So the stations predominantly in the Monmouthshire area, they've got additional skill sets like water rescue. So we've identified that we're short 15 hours per annum. So it's not a significant amount of increase, but we will need to revisit through the unconstrained analysis with the TNAs. We will need to extend the drill. It's highly likely we need to extend the drill period across them stations just to accommodate the additional skills that they possess for water rescue. Recommendation 3, prioritization of control measures for our RDS. Status of this is also complete. Control measures are prioritised for RDS based on risk and time available, creating a sustainable and evidence-based risk training model. Again, Chair, you remember through my previous reporting that recommendation 1 and 3 were inextricably linked through the training analysis and the training calendars. Recommendation 4, the micro-teach development. The status of this is now 95% complete. So I've recently asked the team to revisit the 150 that we identified. To a view of just revisit the recommendation, just to make sure we haven't strayed away from the recommendation. I'd say as a result of the success of the micro teachers, the teams now want a development for everything. So just to satisfy the recommendation, we've identified that we've got 20 outstanding. These are scheduled for completion, so that you'll be aware that the program is resource intensive, but it is on track to be completed on or before the 31st of March 2026. Following that, then it will become a BAU for the service, and they will be consistently updated. And we've just recently gone through job evaluation for one of our administrative roles, and that has now been job evaluated, and that is soon to go out to advert for a systems trainer administrator, just to make sure that that is ongoing, and that the regular review of the training needs analysis for each station is done on an annual basis with the people identified in the report. Recommendation 5, so a full review of our compartment firefighting tactics. The status of this is also complete. We completed a comprehensive review. This has been informed by national and international research, expert input, and the UL FSRI methodology. We've updated all our tactics and now embedded them throughout specialist development events. Recommendation 6, so an update of our compartment 5 behaviour training syllabus. That is also complete. So we've done a full syllabus review. This has been updated to reflect the revised tactics and the latest research. This now ensures all training remains contemporary and evidence-based. As with all the recommendations you note in the report, now they are just subject to final commissioner endorsement. So I just need an opportunity just to get with you, just to run through the evidence, just to show how that I feel that these recommendations are now satisfied and complete.
Brilliant, thank you, Neil. Questions to Neil on the paper? Comments, anybody?
Just to say how positive, Neil, and I think some of your team should be really proud of themselves how far they progressed that in such a short period of time. Really. The only question I had was your end one really is, as much as I like watching you write paper, is that, you know, it doesn't feel like if we are going to have a review meeting that we need that. It's just that clarity on that last bit, doesn't it, really, on the micro teachers, really. But, you know, I appreciate that. I think Kirsty will probably sign off the evidence.
Yeah, so this is, so in the paper, in box 2 key decisions, it talks, like you just said, about the sign off of the recommendation. So that adds a level of assurance around commissioners having a look. And then in box 6 of the recommendations, it says commissioners scrutinise report, endorse the complete conditions and approve transition to business as usual.
Yeah.
So we can't really do that today because we haven't done the first bit.
No.
So I think there's a slight different recommendation, isn't there? Is that sign off as business as usual following the bit in box 2. Yeah. So I think that's what we're clear of, what we're agreeing today, rather than what's written in box 6 at the moment. So that's great. That's really, really helpful. Just on the update on the hours.
Yes.
So how many stations will be subject to that additional, the need for the additional 15 hours?
Initially 3 Monmouthshire stations, or Monmouth, Abergavenny, Chepstow,
Okay.
because they are a mod 2 water rescue response. So mod 2 is a DEFRA.
Yeah, and we've all seen,
flooding
haven't we,
the flooding
Football,
recently,
yeah.
absolutely. So there is a significant additional requirement for those stations over and above what a single pump retained station would have to train against. But Mike and I have had a conversation recently that several of those stations will also go water bowsers. So there may be an opportunity to align the additional training for the specialist appliances, i.e. the water bowser as well, just to make sure that the teams are getting an adequate opportunity to train on the specialist appliance. So when it comes to deployment, we can have an air of confidence that they do receive enough time to train on that additional skill set.
So those 3 stations that you've identified,
They have 15 hours, yeah.
they're
short,
15
per
hours
annum.
short. So are they're not full time,
No, retained.
they're all retained. But the analysis showed that the retained stations didn't have enough hours
Yes.
anyway to do core.
Yeah, so we've reviewed all the training needs analysis
Okay.
now. That's recommendation 3.
Yeah.
So what we've done, we've edited and reviewed the e-learning as well. So
Yeah.
we've taken it from an hour per e-learning module down to 20 minutes.
Okay.
And this is done through theoretical research with our training support unit.
Sure.
So they've had academic input to ensure that the training can be condensed and it is digestible in a 20-minute period. So that has allowed us to reduce the time significantly across the training needs analysis. But also So we completed, so we stripped back the training calendars just to focus on hazard, threats and risks for each particular station. If you remember,
Yeah.
Chair, some stations were
Okay,
doing,
yeah, they didn't
doing
do
high
the
rise and they
high-rise.
didn't have high rise risk, for example. So by doing that exercise, we've gone back, revisited the recommendation and we've identified that those 3 stations are still 15 hours per annum short. So if you remember from the unconstrained analysis, at the bottom, there was a suite of recommendations. And one of those recommendations was we may need to increase the drill period at certain stations to accommodate special skill sets. However, this is also linked to the fire cut review and the CRMP. If those throw up a different train of thought, then that may need to be revisited again and amended accordingly. But at the moment, Mike and I are looking to increase the drill period. And this will be done at a local level in conjunction with the commander and the UAGM. We leave it to them to solutionise. Though we need to find an additional 15 hours. There is capacity. We do have 16 hours per person training allowance available to them at the moment. So it can be quite easily implemented.
So you've got confidence that there's 15 hours are not going to present a problem?
Never at all.
Cool, great. Sorry.
Just one, I've been doing this with principal officer visits as we go around in the on-call stations and update the on-call the work that me and this team are doing, especially around reducing the packages and it's being seen really well by the on-call, especially on taking away the packages if not relevant and being focused on the space and it's being really received well by the on-call.
We delivered, my team delivered a number of training sessions when the new training calendars were introduced in January, and it did throw up lots of questions, lots of anomalies. And if you remember, Chair, from my previous reporting, it is going to be a work in progress and we will tweak and review it as we go, but it is done in conjunction with the end user to make it more user-friendly.
Brilliant. No, that's great, and that's really positive feedback. So what we're agreeing then is that evidence will be presented to the commissioners, and then subject to that being satisfactorily, signed off, then this will move into business as usual rather than a dedicated thematic report. Are we all happy with that? We all agree that's the way to proceed? Perfect. Thank you so much, Neil. Great, really great progress. Then we've got number 9, thematic report, Grenfell update. Max, please.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of the report is to provide an update on the progress in implementation recommendations from Grenfell Tower Inquiry Phase 1, Phase 2, and Welsh Government Grenfell Thematic Review. Progress overview. We're currently working to achieve 71 recommendations across operational preparedness, training, evacuation planning, intelligence gathering, and high-rise procedures. Since the last report, 3 of the 5 Welsh Government thematic review recommendations have been complete, 17 of the 46 Phase 1 recommendations, and 4 of the 20 Phase 2 recommendations. So most work streams remain on track with a small number of red amber areas due to national legislative dependencies, ICT constraints, and some small funding gaps, which we've now fulfilled. Governance and assurance now have a triple lock compliance process, which ensures robust sign-off and auditability. A significant number of recommendations were recently signed off in February as compliant. We now have 7 further recommendations undergoing final quality assurance. Key risks at the moment is the legislative dependencies. We're working to ensure that when we are compliant, we're also looking towards the Building Safety Wales Bill, which is expected in July 2027. So everything we're doing is looking ahead of that. And technology is another key risk, with some recommendations reliant on technology such as apps and system integration. Finally, in addition to the above, the high-rise team have also delivered in some key areas, including the high-rise and evacuation standard operating procedures, training, and also training content, and high-rise operational risk information. So we are currently on track, and we are making full progress towards full compliance by July 2027.
Thank you very much, Mike. I have to hold my hands up, speaking to the digital illiteracy. I'm gonna have to have another lesson on Monday. That's that I can start. I can have a look at the data. Because I can't log on to that system. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Whatever I'm doing is not working. Thank you, Mike. Any questions on this report? Any
I've
issues?
got a comment just to support. We've launched a high rise campaign. And so we launched that in January. It's some really lovely feedback, and the NFCC have taken a particular interest in the film that my team and Mike's team have worked together really, really closely on, and they want him to use that nationally.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. That's good to know. It's good to be best practice and people picking up from us. Can I just, sorry, I've got a couple of questions. So on the resource needs, on box 5, resource needs, and I think you just touched on it about some budgetary issues, Mike.
Yeah.
So you've just said that those budgetary issues have been addressed. Does that cover off what's in box 5 resource needs?
We just move in budgets from one area to another at the moment to accommodate the demands of the high-rise team. There isn't a dedicated
They are very demanding.
Yes. Yeah, we're ensuring that there is money available when they need it
Okay. Okay, and how are you paying for that?
through other budgets, budgets in ops training. They've got a dedicated £10,000 budget in training, and between operations and business fire safety. A recent example, media campaign, which was funded by incorporating other elements of the business fire safety functions to allow us then to pay for their needs.
And then in box 6, they've been a little bit cheeky, haven't they, with the recommendation? So they've made an application to the Additional Learning Fund, and they say that application is outstanding. So what's happening with the application?
I can give an update on that, Chair, if you want.
Perfect.
We've approved it as ALF, Additional Learning Fund, and I've written a business case to go ahead with service on the 10th of March for full approval, and so we'll go from heads of service to ELT for full approval. But it's highlighted one or two anomalies that we don't have a policy for international travel. Ironically, we've got lots of policies, but we don't have one for international travel.
Because that's not going to catch you out, is it?
So there's some recommendations in that paper for ELT to consider.
Okay, so
But we've secured 2 free passes for the conference through the pay it forward that operates in the US through the contact I developed through the water mapping rig training stuff. So that saved us £1,100.
well done, Neil. That's brilliant. So that a final decision on that will be made imminently then.
Hopefully week after next at the latest.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Any further questions on that paper? No, it's very positive. Thank you, Mike. And then we'll go to operational excellence.
Thank you, Chair. The report I submitted provides a progress for the against the recommendation for the operational effectiveness report inspection that was commissioned by the Chief Fire and Rescue Savings Advisor for Wales. In the report, it covers recommendations 2 and 3, which we're implementing our operational tactics and changes to our procedures, which have been completed. Again, within a similar position with Neil, and because they were papers as so aligned, if I could piggyback on to that scrutiny, because then it would give me a chance to present the evidence that we've got to both, because they are so aligned. The update focuses on recommendations 4 to 6. These are where we're at the moment, is the embedding phase. So we completed recommendations 2 and 3, got the training out there, made sure that the awareness is out there of what we're trying to do, and then we're trying to make sure that it is taking place at the context. So what we're asking crews to do when they're attending, they are actually doing that. And to do that, that was around our operational assurance. Our operational assurance trial started in November. The team was in place for an 8-week period, which was highlighted the progress that we when we make up that 8-week period when we started previously, and I give you an overview of the operational assurance trial. The overarching guidance that is being trialled is out there. Version 2 will be following a review of the initial 4 weeks will take place and be published in March. Going through the trial, this is on feedback for the end users, the officers that are undertaking it, so we can update that. We've developed a structured assurance model, including on-scene and remote monitoring, and defined assurance roles and escalation pathways. We've put in place a new system for monitoring the information that's coming back, which includes pro formas around key themes, using Microsoft Forms and a central assurance database. Version 2, the incident-based assurance trial. So we had the team in place for 8 weeks. We've now gone into full trial where we're undertaking an incident-based assurance with a tactical officer. That's been running for 4 weeks. The forms that they were providing the data feeding back to us, we've gone into a version 2 of them based on feedback to make it easier for the end user to use. We completed initial awareness training for the attack officers around assurance, and then within the technical phase of that, we're trying to standardise the practices undertaken by the assurance operatives, provide feedback on common themes that we're picking up, and how we undertake incident reviews. Early learning has helped us update our sort of mobilisation. There's been several bulletins of themes that we've been picking up on, and these will lead to procedural changes as well. We're identifying things that are being picked up on certain incidents that we need to rectify. The incident assurance is going to trial run till the end of May, where then we'll make a decision on which aspects we're going to adopt, whether we're going to adopt it all in full. Once those decisions will be made, recommendations 4 to 6, we then take over a business review, because the trial allows us to implement the recommendations, but we need to make sure that they are suitable for our service. So we'll have that data coming back saying these are the recommendations, this worked for us, this didn't work for us, and this is what we're implementing. So after the trial's completed and decisions made on how we're going to progress it, those 3 recommendations would be in a position to be signed off with the rationale for why we're doing stuff or why we're not doing stuff. There are a couple of there are some financial impacts of the trial that have been identified in the report, but a separate business case will be taken to the decision-making board, which is taking place next week. It will impact. It may have impact on the trial, but the trial will run, whether it's in the original guise or the different guise by the time we finish. And hopefully, once we get to May, we'll have concrete decisions on what we're doing and the progress we're making. It does seem to be having an impact out there. We are getting more information back, and we are having problems as we are finding them. So at the moment, it's allowing it to run the course and providing that information back when it's successful. It is. Are there any questions regarding the report itself?
Thanks, Mike. Any questions, comments?
One comment, which I thought the operational assurance monitoring trial guidance was really helpful. No, I read it and I got it. So that no, I thought it was really good. You see the iteration of that, so that's really positive. I noted the financial issues. It's really important to get this right, isn't it? Really. So we have to find money. We have to find money, in my view, around making sure that we can deliver it in the right way. But I think that for the ELT and others for review about what we need to do. My one question is, so we thought we were doing stuff anyway, didn't we? And that was part of Dan's review, where we suddenly find that around domestic violence that Neil's team were training some of this stuff, but actually just won't do. Are we still picking up some of that? Or we've now trained, but we've still got that procedures and processes that we're just not quite clicking yet? And I suppose if we are, I don't want to run the service because that's Adam and others' responsibility, but I think we should know about that in some format, Chair. I don't know what that looks like really, because I'd hate to have another thematic by Dan who kind of identifies the same issues for us, and we, for all the work you're trying to do, Mike. I'm not sure I'm phasing that right.
What happens is the incidents take place, they get reviewed by the ops assurance officers that are out there, and then once that information is fed back, it gets reviewed again by the team. And if we're spotting the things that Dan was picking up in his report, then we put in immediate action, whether that is specific station-based actions to review with that team, or we pick it up and it's noted over a wider number of incidents and it's a service-wide, then we'll put corrective actions. The things that we're picking up are already feeding into the training, again, with the review of the CFBT and FBA refreshers, that incorporate in the steps that we want to correct. And with monitoring that going through, so we're not seeing the same issues over and over again. It's going to take a while to fully embed this. There's some really good practices out there, and we are still seeing incidents where people are defaulting back to what they were doing before. Hopefully over time that will gradually phase out and we'll be in a position where majority of cases, all the cases, are following the procedures that we want to undertake at an incident.
So, forgive me, my memory. So how is that data coming through to the new KPI and the performance meetings? Because that's kind of like the reporting mechanism, isn't it? It is like how is that going to?
Yeah, I think the points really around the assurance for the authority, and the operational readiness service. Essentially, there is a balance, isn't there, between getting the right level. I don't think we've got it at the moment. I think we've got elements of things like the number of people completed, health and safety events, those sorts of things, which you will get coming through to the authority through the performance framework in the form of KPIs. But I think there is a piece of work to bridge the gap around almost like a yearly thematic assurance piece around operational assurance for the authority moving forwards. And that's going to be a result, that's going to be data driven, but also thematic, because I think the point that you make, Carl, is really, really important around, well, we have these thematic reviews, don't we, or a deep dive into where we are. How do we show self-awareness in the future to say we don't need a deep dive because we're aware of what our operational performance is? We're not there now, but I think that is the piece of work to bridge the performance management framework at the moment with an assurance piece from the ODAR team.
We are feeding in common themes for our weekly briefings with our attack officers. These are the things that we're identifying that are common across incidents. So our attack officers are the ones that are going out and doing the assurance, and we try on a 4-weekly basis, is the plan, is to give them 3 key themes that we're picking up. So when you are out there looking, these are the ones that are our high priorities that we want to correct. Make sure that your focus and your attention when you're doing your assurance on CSD. So we've also going through the data. We're trying to get a process in place where we can streamline the data, where it does identify those trends more readily. It's quite labor intensive at the moment, going through the incidents and having a look and see what common themes we're picking up. But we're working to try and get that more streamlined, and then hopefully we will have those KPIs that we can use that feed into the reports, the annual reports on what we look at.
That reviewing sounds like an AI kind of process, isn't it? Ideally, you would get somebody else to have a look at those and then just put out the report about what the common needs are. So I think the paper is asking us to scrutinise and look at the progress made, which I think we are doing. I think the actions arising is to, and relating back to Neil's paper, is to find a date to go through the data and get the sign off. And then I guess the other thing to consider is going forward in the new governance arrangements, some kind of internal audit assurance report that comes up to the new authority on a timely basis around compliance and following good practice. Anything else anybody wants to raise? Are we clear? Happy? We'll move on. Thank you so much, Mike. As always, really comprehensive report. Thematic review, broadening the role. Matt, please, number 11.
Thank you, Chair. So I've summarised with the report. Obviously, we've been reporting to the board now for a number of months, and with the recommendations. So as we're aware, there were 4 recommendations, and we have adequately completed 3 of the recommendations, with an agreement that we will pause on one of those recommendations until such time the fire account review is complete, and for us to review the moving forward then. So the report goes up, shows the data that's being captured now, and our ask really as part of the board is the move, the operational reset to BAU. This will then be written into a new procedure that will become the new station procedure and replacing the old one then, obviously the blocks of time and managing that. The key element of this is the data that's captured as part of it to ensure that we don't end up where we were before, and we continue to move forward and capture data that's important to demonstrate how our operational staff are being productive in the day and addressing risks within their community and within the commercial element of that then. Mike has already alluded to the data that's been captured as well and how he will use this data to scrutinise through his operational management team as well, and these will form KPIs then. This data is already linked into our current system of Venus, and obviously as we explore other digital solutions, we would anticipate that to transition across to there then, and again being more visible. The data as well, now Mike is quality assuring the data against other elements, so to ensure that the so what part of it and ensuring the crews are educated in the task and they are relevant for what is being addressed within that paper. So for us, really is the ask of the board is now operational reset is almost taken away, and this becomes part of the BAU for operations for Mike and once team was delivering.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions to Matt on the paper? Nothing from me. Anybody else around the table? So we are noting the report and bring the advice from Matt that this now becomes business as usual and forms part of the day-to-day operational performance of the organisation and will be assured through usual mechanism.
And that would feed, just to offer you, Chair, that will feed into then debt's performance and next meetings as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're all agreed with that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Matt, for all of that. And then you're going to take us through item 12, I believe, which is Welsh Government's inspection of the joint fire control.
So as everybody will be aware, that the latest publication from the Chief Fire Rescue Service Advisor and the Inspectorate was published on the 19th of December, and that was focused around the joint fire performance and the linking the recommendation to the Grenfell Tower Inquiry Phase 2. There are 5 recommendations specific to South and Mid and West Wales, so the cumulative joint fire control within that recommendation. And again, then they break down a number of areas. So where we are at the moment, our ask is that, as you'll be aware, there is a gold meeting that's occurred with ourselves and South Wales Police around some areas that have been highlighted within the joint fire control and what that looks like going forward. So we have the draft copy of what is a forensic dive into the joint fire control and the concerns raised. And we have just met this week around some elements that we require further information around and just some further detail before that's then returned to the joint fire control gold meeting with the Chief Constable, and then there will be a 30-day turnaround of that information if we're able to address some of the concerns that's within that paper. Now, falling out of that, then it will give us the direction to address the 5 recommendations. Either that's within what the options we discussed or continue down there. So for this moment in time, our ask is to not pause the recommendations, but allow the other paper to go through the gold meeting, in which then we would be able to offer greater clarity and greater direction around those 5 recommendations, whatever the decision will come up that gold meeting.
Thank you very much, Matt. Questions, comments to Matt?
Just an update more broadly, whilst obviously the launch of the report would call a number of people off guard, it has helped. We've been engaged with Welsh Government, and there has been an agreement now that they will develop, as we move transition to a new inspection framework, a procedure for document clarity, release, challenge and date. So I think that's a real positive about what was quite a challenging issue at the moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we note that. Matt, are you able to give us any timescales? I know, the paper isn't really able to give us, timescales where you believe some of this work is going to be completed, or you're aiming to complete it by.
Yeah, if if I was to give probably a broad answer to that, Chair, would be depending on what decision comes out of the goal meeting. If it was the decision for us to review the camping and fire control to another location, elements of those recommendations would be met as part of that move.
Yeah.
And we would be striving to do all of this prior to 2028 due to the challenges that we face with the Euros coming into obviously our capital city as well. So that our aim would be to complete them as part of that transition. If that wasn't the decision, Jane, they would be done sooner than 2028, which we would stay at the current location.
So when do you anticipate that goal meeting making a decision? So when will we have a definitive decision on what the way forward is, do you believe?
As a look forward, I anticipate the paper will be completed towards the back end of next week with some of the additional detail that we've asked to go into this paper. Mike and I met with Middle West this week, and we've asked for some additional information we're going to offer the Chief Constable some reassurance as part of that as well. Once that paper's done, that would be sent immediately to the Chief Constable and ask for a 30-day turnaround then. So in reality, Chair, my anticipation, we should know exactly where we're going towards the middle to the end of May.
Okay. So for the purposes of this meeting, and for the record, we have formally received the town's report. We've noted its content, and are we accepting in principle the recommendations?
Yes, I would agree with that, Chair, the recommendation.
So we're accepting in principle the recommendations. We note the work that is being commenced already with regards to the next steps and responding. And we are awaiting recommendations. And as I'm looking to you about how either the commissioners or this is such an important and integral piece of our service, isn't it, Johnson Hall? So how I guess I'm looking to you, Amanda, to provide assurance that this won't be lost. So in the handover to the new governance arrangements, how can that be?
So I'm noting that we're likely to have a decision point around end of May, mid to end of May. So I can note that as an action for me to make sure that that goes on to the next forward work plan. And then we just need to decide where it goes. Is it ready in time to go to you before your departure, or does it need to go to? But also we have a new internal governance set up now where we have a prior decision-making board. So I would imagine that probably needs a meeting all of its own due to the complexity. So I would envisage an extraordinary decision-making board where we look at the options and make a decision at which option we're going to take to the governing body.
Yeah. Brilliant. Everybody clear and happy with that approach? Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Matt, for that. Item number 13, communication and engagement update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The paper gives us a reminder of our objectives of the wider strategy, and we had the year one delivery plan attached to that. It's based on the audit, based on all the feedback, based on all the recommendations. We're coming to the end of that first year delivery plan. At the time of writing, in the paper, you've got the headlines from the last 6 weeks, but what that paper does miss is our Leadership Connect launch, which is the new and updated version of Midland Leaders. It's a programme that is a 6-weekly programme of weekly briefings by members of the executive leadership team to smaller groups of on-middle leaders face-to-face to enable better discussion, better conversations, and better understanding for those people to take back to their teams, those key briefings that are important that their teams know about. The cycle started last week. We had the Deputy Chief Constable, I promoted to then to the service, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, and our director, it's because we talked about joint fire control, and our Director of People Services hosted the first one. We had, I think it was 10 people in the room. We ran over time, they wanted longer. We covered the CRMP, I know it's unheard of, CRMP, discussion on staff survey results. We had update on the performance framework linked to the CRMP, and another topic that's completely gone up my head. It'll come back to me. Feedback was they wanted longer. They wanted to deep dive and have more of that rich discussion. So that's positive. So we've had some in the moment learning and deep rest of the cycle we've extended to an hour and a half and review again, not just basing it on the views of 10 people in the room who got very excited. Is that a wider thing that we want to consider for that programme? And that links into lots of things we've been talking about here and lots of the other causes of concern and the recommendations as well around that cascade of information from the senior decision-making bodies all the way down to the front line. So that revamped middle leaders into Leadership Connect, the Cascade series, is part of that. The appendix for the report gives that detailed look ahead through January to the end of March around can we mop up and deliver what's outstanding in the strategy. There's been some slippage around dates, but they were internally placed deadlines anyway. I was being slightly ambitious when I wrote this programme. The challenges are around data and digital, coming back to what we said at the start, Chair. We're waiting for a new piece of software that we are procuring for internal comms that will give us much better measurement and metrics on the reach of our information. At the moment, we send stuff out on our channels and hope for the best. This will actually give us details around how many people are opening it, how long are they spending on it, what are they doing with that content when they receive it. We've been working with procurement on it. There was a contracts anomaly that on their side, company side, but we are working through that. We're almost there. And then the other challenge is around capacity. So I've talked previously on my reports around not having that manager role fully staffed. We've recruited. We're almost complete with DBS. That's breaking news this morning. And I've spoken to her and we're looking at a mid-March start date, as long as we can get that certificate printed and that doesn't turn into a drama. So there'll be an uplift in pace of delivery in the next few weeks. And I am assured that we can pick up and get everything on this list completed where it needs to be by then.
Yeah, well, questions to Ian or comments on paper? No, I don't see any. Thank you, Ian. It's really, it's a big change from where we were a year ago. It's really very positive. And so thank you for everything that we've been doing. Perfect. That takes us to item 14, forward work programme that sets out what we might be doing next. Clearly, some of this kind of becomes business as usual, so it comes off the agenda. We've just talked earlier in the meeting, haven't we, about whether we would need to have a final potential extra meeting in May. So we will get together, I think, outside of this meeting and agree and do that.
I'll review everything you've said during this meeting because it may be that we can sign things off on the 27th of March at the Board of Commissioners, or it may be later, sort of around May time. But I'll go through this and revise the forward work plan.
Is everybody content with that approach? If you're managed to go away, look at the forward work programme and then schedule meetings as appropriate. Read that. Thank you, Amanda. Any items of urgent business? I've not been informed of any prior to the meeting. I don't see anybody raising them now. That takes us to item 16. Items to report back to the Board of Commissioners. So is there anything that we feel we need to advise, alert or assure the board of? Obviously the board receives the minutes of the meeting. I just wonder whether we just want to highlight the joint fire control. Just a short note for the board, because it is such a fundamentally important part of our operations. I think, Amanda, it's easy, isn't it, when there are just four commissioners? I think we just need to get into the practice, don't we, in the new governance regime of being mindful that there will be more people to ensure that information is properly shared with. So I think probably comes into its own a bit more when there is a bigger authority rather than the board amendment, but might be useful to get into the discipline of thinking about advise, alerting or assuring.
Do you want me to just, because we can basically do the same report again to Board of Commissioners, but with the link rather than the whole appendix, because quite a heavy pack of papers. The agenda's quite heavy already, so rather than overwhelm your papers. That's okay.
That would be great. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. And with that, I think we can bring the meeting to a close. Diolch and Alan Powell, thank you so much to everybody for their contribution this morning. Thank you to Joe and Stuart. So I didn't log through at the beginning of the meeting. I'm so sorry, my rude of me, I'm very rude of me, but it's good to have you this morning.
It's fine, don't worry. I'm sure everybody's a bit fed up of seeing us actually, but thank you. That was
So
very
you see
interesting.
it now, Joe, that's what it is.
Heather.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Go ahead, stop. Oh, yeah.
Stop the book.
Thanks, Mark, that's all.